Hello and welcome to Pain in the Podcass, your place to find out everything you've ever wanted to know about pain. My name's Dr. Joseph Parsons, and I'm joined by the wonderful Don Wigesoria and Dr. Joshua Craw. And today we're going to be talking about the NHS in crisis. Welcome in.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Pain in the Podcass, and this time we are discussing the NHS crisis. But before we do that, let's do what we always do and go through what we've learnt about ourselves and give you guys a fact about ourselves as well. Joe, do you want to start?
Yes, so a fact about me is that my favourite live gig that I ever went to was by a New Zealand singer called Marlon Williams, and I would thoroughly recommend that people go and give him a listen.
I'm
Isn't
very
that
jealous.
One of the brothers that did like Scary Movie and what have you?
Is it?
Oh, Williams. No, it's Wayans. Yeah.
No, yeah.
I'm personally very jealous that Joe got to go and see Marlon Brando because
Marlon
Brando.
I'm making another again with you.
So weird, no one knows he's from New Zealand.
I mean, I'm not going to try to do a New Zealand Marlon Brando.
Please, Josh. For the fans.
Well, maybe you'll have to subscribe to the Patreon to hear my Marlon Brando impression.
In the breakdown, you'll hear Josh doing a New Zealand Marlon Brando. And so, what about you, Josh?
Yep, so fact about myself is I've seen The American Office probably 10 times through.
Oof.
Yeah, it's just too much. I can't get into The Office, no matter how many times I try.
It's one of the best sitcoms ever
I
made.
do love The Office, but I don't think I could do 10 times.
Yeah, that's 10 times over several years.
Yeah, Parks and Rec I can do.
Oh, Parks and Rec is so good.
Yeah, that I could do 10 times. Just because it's so wholesome.
It's got an underlying wholesomeness. And
Yeah.
Ron Swanson's hilarious.
Yeah.
What would be your favourite sitcom of all time? Is yours The American Office?
Oh, it's close. I have to have a think about it.
Okay.
I think mine would be Parks and Rec. Yeah. Either that or Arrested Development.
Fair. Mine's The Good Place.
Oh, Good Place is good as well.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So brilliantly written.
They ended it at the right time as well.
They did. It just, yeah.
Yeah.
What a piece of work.
You know what's also really good? This Is Us.
Is it the same team?
No.
Oh, I need to watch that.
Completely different.
Okay.
But really, really good. So,
Is it a comedy?
No, but I wouldn't say no, as in it's not a comedy, but I don't know what it is. It's just a journey of life.
Okay.
The journey of life.
Yeah, and it's so well written. It blew me away.
Noted.
Is it Office, probably. Yeah,
Okay.
probably my favourite.
What's a fact about you, Dom?
My fact is that I've got a little bit of a teeny tiny head, and so it makes buying hats really difficult. But I finally found a hat that I really like, and I'm gonna buy it.
What kind of hat is it?
It's from Rab.
Okay. Is it a cap? Is it a
It's just a
bowler
little
hat?
beanie. Beanies look really weird on my head. They either poke out way too tall, or they just. I don't know if I should cover my ears. Should I not cover my ears? Is it a fisherman beanie situation? It's too many.
So,
Dilemmas.
for context, with the size of Don's head, I think a normal-sized beanie would probably go the whole way over his face.
Yeah,
It's like
it
if you
does.
pulled it down, his head is not big enough.
Yeah.
It'd be more like a balaclava.
Yeah.
Now that I'm looking, does Don have a small head or does Joe have a massive head?
I think
Joe's
both-
got a massive head.
Me and Josh both have quite large
Yeah.
heads.
Cabeza.
Why did that sound like a Kiwi accent?
It's like visor.
Well, that's the facts for this week. How about the learning? How learned are we this week?
I am learning that I don't necessarily despise yogurt.
When did you discover this?
So if anyone's ever heard of Too Good To Go, it's this app where like shops and restaurants and supermarkets will put on stuff that's left over at the end of the day, and you can pay a small fee and pick up whatever they give you, basically. And I did this for an Asda supermarket near where I live, and I got, I think, like 18 Muller Corner, and I don't really like yogurt. My wife didn't like the flavours that they'd given us, so I was like, I can't let this all go to waste.
Because it's too good to go.
Because it's too good to go. So I tried one and I put some granola in it and stuff, and I thought, you know what, with all the strawberry
Was it the
stuff,
granola that came with the corner?
No, it was a
or
separate one. It was just a strawberry muller corner. But actually, you know what, I've been training myself to like it because I figure it's a good snack, it's pretty healthy, it's good for your gut. If I can convince myself to like yogurt, it's better than like eating a chocolate bar, you know? So Operation Get Healthier is
very much underway.
Is very much underway. So I've now moved off just exclusively muller corner. I will now eat strawberry yogurt or lemon yogurt, preferably with some granola in it, just to reduce the yogurty aftertaste. But I'm getting there.
How do you feel about cottage cheese?
Nope.
I
Not
think
there
that will
yet.
be the next evolution in your journey.
Oh, what, for health?
Yeah.
Supposedly it's amazing for you, but it just is like eating vomit.
What?
The consistency is like,
Chunky vomit.
yeah.
I can't. Yeah, I get that.
If you put some carrots in cottage cheese, like chunks of carrot, which are inexplicably in all vomit ever, even if you've eaten no carrots, if you
And
put some chunks
corn.
of carrot and corn, always carrots and corn.
Both ends.
Yeah, exactly. But no, if you put chunks of carrot and corn into cottage cheese, it would look like sick rather than like a food.
I don't think anyone would combine carrots and cottage cheese just on its own.
Why?
I don't think
You'd
that's a
have,
good
like,
combo.
hummus, and that's like a similar consistency.
Oh, I don't think
except less lumpy.
cottage cheese is a dunking thing.
Is it not?
No, it has to be a stirred in thing for me.
I think cottage cheese sort of looks like a yeast infection, like an infection of the genitals. When you've seen it, you've seen it.
So for anyone at home who has an infection of their genitals, write in and tell us, does it look like cottage cheese?
Just don't send any pictures.
Please don't send pictures. Right, moving swiftly on. Don, what is your learning about yourself this week?
I've learned that I have old man style. Either that or M&S is on fire right now, because I went in there the other day over Christmas and I was like, I want that one, I want that one, I want this one, I want everything. I don't know what's happening, who the designers are, but yeah, I really like it.
I'm gonna pop some tags. Only got $20 in my pocket. You can steal Grandpa's style, eh?
Yeah. And it's
tags.
so comfy.
Nice. Are you going to start wearing those loafer slippers?
No, because I don't understand why those were invented. So you've got regular slippers like this that you can
Heelless.
just slide your foot into
Yeah.
without the heel. So why would you have the heeled one? You have
Because
to
then
like
if the slippers slip off, falls risk
just
for old people.
walk like a normal person. Like,
No,
Well,
like,
classic. Thanks, Don. That's my job done. Physiotherapist, just tell your patients, just walk like a normal person.
wear some slippers
tried
and walk like
walking?
a normal person.
Have you just tried walking better? Have you just tried not falling?
There was one time where I was
In
really
Bandcamp.
frustrated at someone because they said something really funny at me.
Which I always get frustrated at.
And I had no comeback to it. And all I could muster up was, I just wish you were born more. And I had no idea what that meant at the time, but it was so funny. Just if they were just more of a human, which is what I meant to say. But yeah,
They're still half in the womb.
That's a traumatic image. Josh, what have you learned about yourself this week?
What I've learnt about myself this week is that when I play video games online against other people, I suddenly become the 14-year-old version of myself.
Are we talking about using words like noob, for example?
Words along those lines, yeah.
and insulting people's mothers.
Oh my god. I'm playing with a friend one of my good friends from childhood, and I've not said your mum jokes in years, and it's literally every other sentence.
Yeah, your mum jokes just feel really weird for me now. It's just like what did I say yesterday? I said it for the first time in a very, very long time last night to Josh.
What, did your mum joke?
I
didn't
and it
hear
wasn't
that.
even a proper your mum. I just said your mum, and I just felt so dirty.
Like your mum.
See, that was a good one. That was
You're
a
not
good
gaming
one.
now, Josh.
Anyway, shall we get on to the meat and potatoes of the episode?
We'll do that.
With some cottage cheese.
So, the title of this episode is purposely a little bit clickbaity, because if you live in the UK or you have any sort of news coming to you from UK politics, you'll see that there's often discussions of our National Health Service being in crisis, and there'll be discussions of waiting lists and understaffing, and there'll be discussion of various scandals that have happened over the years where there's been particularly poor care. But we thought, even though this doesn't seem directly pain related, for those listeners in the UK, we wanted to give you a bit of a picture of the state the NHS is actually in and how this might affect your care or the care of people that you know. So we wanted to start off by having a little bit of a discussion about something that seems to come up all of the time in the media, which is understaffing. And I think Josh is probably the best person, having been in the NHS for the longest of all of us, is probably the best person to kick off with this.
Yeah, so staffing is always an issue in pretty much any field, but in healthcare it seems a lot more pertinent and a lot more sort of prevalent. From the data that we can see, approximately 26% of NHS staff feels that the organisation is actually adequately staffed.
And I don't know who these 26% of people are, because I've not met a single person ever.
Maybe they're all just in one hospital and it's just really well staffed. Like, oh, this is really good.
This is brilliant.
Because it's never any hospitals I've ever been to.
I was going to say, I don't think I've ever thought, oh, you know what? We've got this covered. This feels, well, not that we've not got it covered, but you know what I mean? I was like, this feels manageable. It's never like that. It's always working beyond hours. It's always seeing more patients than you should reasonably expected to see in a certain time frame. Like,
you get to a point in the NHS where you realise you can only do what you can do and you can't sacrifice yourself for it.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if you try and go, when you think of yourself as going above and beyond, if you go to a point where you start to sacrifice your own well-being, it makes you more likely to make mistakes as a clinician.
Oh, absolutely. That's the crux of it.
You can't pour from an empty bucket.
Correct.
I feel like you've said that on the podcast before.
Yeah, it's something that my old boss kind of drilled into me.
I like it though. I think it's true. This is completely going off on a tangent immediately, but yeah, you can't give more than you can give. I know that's a terrible way of phrasing it, but it's expecting staff to fill the gaps caused by understaffing by just doing more is not a sustainable option. Yeah.
So is it a case of the NHS just not hiring staff, or is it people dropping out? Well, if we look at figures, they're a little bit dated at the minute. So from 2022, we can see that the vacancy rate for doctors is roughly 7%. I can assure you that that's changed massively over the last 4 years. We'll go into a bit more detail about that with the NHS staffing crisis for doctors coming up. But approximately 12% of nurses in terms of vacancies. So 1 in every 8 nurses that should be working, there's a vacancy.
That was in 2022, right?
That was in 2022, yeah. And we can see that in 2025, the rate for doctors was slashed from 7% to 4.4%.
And so actually, I think it's important to reflect on this. This is only a small point, but seeing that the vacancy rate for doctors has reduced, we're very much, I think, in the UK, we have a tendency to look at the NHS and to look at the news stories about it and say that everything is terrible. But actually, this is in its own way an improvement. There are fewer posts going unfilled. That is also potentially an artifact of the fact that there are probably fewer posts.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's good that we're not having all of these positions that are going unfilled to the same degree.
Yeah, well, after we've talked about the understaffing, I feel like I've got something to add to this in terms from a doctor's perspective. But what we can see is that the actual number of doctors per 1,000 people, if you look at it across European countries, so like the EU, it's 3.9, whereas 3.9 doctors, so 4 doctors roughly per 1,000 people. In the UK, it's 3.2.
So it doesn't sound like much. It's only 0.7 equivalent of a doctor to look after 1,000 patients. But if you imagine that, say that a doctor, for the sake of rounding and making numbers easier, say that you work 40 hours a week as a doctor, and say that those 40 hours a week and approximately 4 doctors in the EU, you've got 160 hours of doctor's time to cover those 1,000 patients, equating to what? Like 10 minutes-ish ballpark per person per week, which is actually pretty good when you think about how many times the average person goes to a doctor. Whereas in the UK, if you round 3.2 down to about 3, that's only about 120 minutes, so you're actually losing quite a lot of clinical time there. It doesn't sound like much, but if you then scale that out to weeks, months, years, you're losing huge amounts of time that could be given to those patients. But actually, it would take 40,000 more doctors being employed in England for us to top up to that same level as the EU.
And what we do see is there's actually a lack of doctors in specific areas. So, for example, we can see that as of October of 2025, there were 800 fewer GPs than there were in 10 years prior. So we've had 800 GPs lost, or GP positions dropped over 10 years, which 800 GPs, okay, doesn't sound like a lot, but as Joe mentioned with the percentages there, that really adds up. 800 GPs, they're seeing, 20 patients a day? That's a lot.
And when you consider the fact that it's not just that we're not filling these posts, it's not just that there are fewer posts, it's actually that there are more doctors leaving NHS organisations. So in that same 10-year period from 2015 to 2025, back in 2015, there were 15,500 doctors in secondary care, so in hospitals, who left the NHS. Whereas in 2025, there was over 20,000, so nearly 5,000 more doctors per year are leaving NHS hospitals. So, I mean, we said before 800 is a large number of GPs, but an extra 5,000 doctors lost to hospitals each year. You can theoretically plug those gaps by employing more new graduates, but how much of those doctors that are leaving are actually taking a lot of expertise with them? How many of them are more senior doctors? And we're trying to expect new graduates, poorly experienced doctors, and not in an offensive way, they just haven't had that time in their career. We're expecting them to try and replace high-level registrars, consultants, very senior clinicians.
Well, there is a way that there is a way that the government's trying to fill that is, and that's by foreign labour. So we're seeing a massive influx of IMGs, so that's international medical graduates. So they're doctors that are qualified in countries that aren't the UK. And this might think, oh, fantastic, we're getting more doctors here. They're going to fill all these posts, they're going to cut waiting lists, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And I'll be honest with you, 99% of the international doctors that I work with are absolutely fantastic, great clinicians. But the issue lies in they've never worked in the NHS before. So they don't know how the system works. So even if they're consultants, it can take them a good 6 months to get used to working in the NHS and how our system works. It can be so different from what they're used to. Mm. But it's also a double-edged sword. So we're getting more doctors in. But what that means is we're now creating a bottleneck because these doctors that are coming from abroad, they want training. Rightly so. They're working in the NHS, living in England. They should be able to progress their careers. But with a very limited number of training posts for doctors, I think there's roughly somewhere between 8,000 and 8,500 training posts per year for doctors in the UK.
Can you just give a bit of context by what you mean as training posts, sorry?
Yeah, so that's entering into a specialty training programme. So a doctor would go through foundation year 1 and 2, so they're the first 2 years after you graduate as a doctor. After F1, you're working on your own licence. So you're a fully qualified doctor with a full licence to practice medicine. Then after your F2 year, so your second foundation year, you then apply for specialty training. And this is a competitive process. You put in applications, you have a portfolio of your achievements and what have you, which give you points. You might interview, so you could apply for whatever specialty you want. It could be surgery, it could be internal medicine, it could be emergency medicine, radiology, all those types of things. And you compete. Now, what we've seen is, particularly when the Conservative government laxed the rules on immigrants coming in to work in the NHS, post-Brexit, I might add, since we lost a lot of labour from the European market, what we've seen is we've seen competition ratios absolutely skyrocket for these training posts. So, for example, my specialty, emergency medicine, when I was in medical school, the competition ratio was roughly 2-1. So 2 applicants for every job that was available.
Which, in a competitive field is pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad. You can't really expect to be any better than that. However, we've seen that go up. When I applied back in 2022, the competition ratio rose to 6.5-1. So 6.5 doctors applying for every 1 post. As of people entering in 2025, which is the last one that I have data for for emergency medicine, that went up to 14 to 1.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a 7-fold more difficult process of trying to get into those posts. And actually, you can see that because there's been this bottleneck, between 2019 and 2024, the percentage of all doctors that were FY1s and FY2s, so in their first years post-graduation, rose from 21% to 26%. So it shows clearly this bottleneck in the more specialty training further in people's careers is forcing them to plug the gaps with new graduates. But then if there's this bottleneck, what are those new graduates going to do? There's nowhere for them to go. And so if we're saying, like, for example, we spoke back in maybe episode 10, this is dredging my memory banks, about having to employ hundreds of new radiologists in order to complete and radiographers to get through the backload of scan waiting lists in the NHS. And you think, like, if we've got all these specialties where we need to employ more people, we need the training posts for them. We can't just depend on newly qualified doctors to plug those skill gaps. It's not really fair on anyone in that respect.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, the increase of F1, F2 doctors, that's a government initiative to increase places in medical school, but it's also doctors not being able to get jobs. Like, we see that we're in this really weird sort of juxtaposed position where we both have a shortage of doctors and an abundance. So
Yeah.
I personally know people that have finished those first 2 years as a doctor and then just are unemployed now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or have to rely on locum work, which is working on an ad hoc basis. But those locum jobs, so like if somebody goes off sick and then there's a shift available in a certain hospital, those are drying up. They're no longer an available source of work.
But equally, although they're not as common as they used to be, we still spend enormous amounts of money on temporary staffing in the NHS. So rather than actually producing these posts for permanent staff to fill, the last data that I could find was in 2019, 2020, in that kind of tax year. And the NHS spent £2.38 billion on temporary staffing. And so that might be bank staff covering nursing, covering healthcare assistants, it might be locum doctors, but like 2.38 billion is an enormous amount of money. I know the NHS budget is now sort of ballooned to around 200 billion, but actually still 1% of the NHS's budget going on temporary staffing. You think, we're paying these temporary staff higher rates, we're putting them in situations where they don't necessarily know the ward they're working on, they don't necessarily know the patient group, and expecting them to provide the same level of care. It's unreasonable on the bank staff, it's unreasonable on the people who want to get jobs but can't because they're being filled with bank staff. And it's a huge economic cost to the NHS.
So I know we've mentioned the quality of care going down, but could you give some kind of practical examples of what that could look like?
When I've been on a stroke ward, for example, we have had nursing staff who are bank staff, and they are fully qualified nurses and they are competent in their nursing skills. However, those bank staff, some of them have never worked on a stroke unit before. Now, the way in which you nurse someone who perhaps has a stroke where they have hemiplegia, so one side of their body, they have a dense one-sided weakness, so maybe if they'd had a stroke on the left side of their brain, they might not have any or minimal muscle activity in their right arm and right leg. Or they might have something called spasticity, which is like an increase in tone, so your body's natural readiness. So you might end up with your arm in a weird position because the stroke is not allowing your body to move in the right way.
And it's just fixed that way.
And it's fixed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, in essence, yes.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know how to work on positioning of that patient, for example, if you don't know how to support them in a way that, with their moving and handling, for example, patients with certain conditions might be more vulnerable if they're handled inappropriately. It's not that these staff aren't qualified in their profession, it's that they're not necessarily skilled in the area they're being expected to work. So rather than employing staff who are just covering some shifts, if we actually took the money that we're using for them and created new posts,
Yeah.
then we would be able to have that higher level skill set provided more consistently. Also, from a completely pragmatic point of view, when we've had locum doctors on the various wards where I've worked, they just don't know where stuff is.
Yeah.
And that's not a criticism. Like, if you've never been to a place, you can't, like, smell where the clinical room is. You know, it's... But if you need to go and get stuff, if you don't know the codes for certain doors and you don't know where the keys are for controlled drugs and all this kind of stuff, you can't be as efficient because you're going to spend a quarter of your time walking around like Bambi asking where things are.
Exactly. It's like when you first become a fully qualified doctor as an F1, it's half the battle is the first few months is learning how to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that you don't have the medical skills. It's it's the environment that you're in.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're permanent, you learn all the weird eccentricities of that we keep the blue roll in a cupboard at the back of the kitchen behind the bread. You know, there's going to be weird shit that your ward does or that your environment does that it's important for you to be able to learn and have the time to learn.
And then when you're a resident doctor as well, you move every 4 months. Yay!
Just to keep things spicy.
I mean, I guess this kind of applies to a lot of different jobs out there, having to settle into a new workplace.
100%.
But I think with the NHS, it's because there's so much at stake and people expect so much out of everyone.
Yeah. If you work in an office and you're in a new office and you don't know where the printer toner is,
exactly,
it's slightly less important than not knowing where the crash trolley is if someone has a heart attack. You know, it's there's levels to this. But as well, not only like can that temporary staffing impact on the quality of care people receive, but also particularly from a nursing point of view, often you'll have a nurse who's in charge of the ward in terms of acting as a ward manager, or they're controlling staffing, or they're running board rounds, things like this. But the nurses who have staff don't turn up, or they've not got enough staff to cover, they have to spend time trying to get, at very short notice, cover staff. And then they have to spend 30 minutes, an hour, ringing round to various agencies trying to get someone who can come in at the drop of a hat. You know, it's... It removes their clinical time as well. So it further detracts from patient care by taking people who should be providing patient care and making them do more bureaucracy.
I hate bureaucracy in the NHS. It's my least favourite part of just everything.
I could not agree more.
What percentage of the budget do you guys reckon is spent on salaries?
What, on...
Yeah, so it's like 215 billion, isn't it, is the NHS budget.
Yeah.
I'm going to say...
clinical salaries?
Yeah, clinical salaries.
I'm going to say...
salaries in general.
Oh, salaries in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to say 40%.
Yeah, I was going to go somewhere around the same. I'm going to go for 41%.
You bitch.
I think Joe's just about won it. It's 70%.
Jesus.
This is one of the biggest employers in the world, isn't it? The NHS.
Yeah. And you know what? I was thinking I would kind of save this for later on, but my pouring my heart out piece... I've been reflecting recently. There's been a worldwide kind of rise in nationalistic tendencies, I think it's fair to say, and you can see people becoming more kind of... I'm not saying everyone, but there's sort of greater degrees of xenophobia, greater degrees of kind of protectionism of people's national identity. And I've been reflecting on what there could be that would make me proud to be British or proud to be English. And I'm not saying there aren't things, but I think more than anything else, the thing we have to be proud of is the NHS. It's providing free, high-quality healthcare, and it isn't perfect, and the waiting lists are long, and things do go wrong, and there are crises, and there are scandals and whatever, but actually, what a phenomenal service. How lucky we are. I think if it does fall apart, we'll very quickly realise how blessed we are to have such an incredible provision.
I know that I didn't truly appreciate it until I had more serious conditions to deal with, injuries, whatever it was. And then I also realised when my parents were getting older that they needed more and more care. And that's when it really hit me how valuable it was.
Yeah, and I think people do take it for granted.
Yeah.
They really do. Like, people go into A&E for like a sniffly nose. It's just...
I'll put a little bit in the breakdown. I can't remember how many it was, but there's a ridiculous number of people who went to the NHS last year for hiccups.
Hiccups?
What hiccups?
Yeah, I went to A&E.
Got to love a bit of eructation.
I knew him well. One thing I want to touch on as well about why sort of we might end up with understaffing is we can provide sort of training for staff, and the NHS does contribute a lot of money in training staff, but actually the dropout rate is a big concern for governments. For example, in nursing students, the dropout rate is around 24%.
No way.
And so if it costs, the statistics that I found said that it costs about £60,000 to the NHS. That's how much they contribute towards the training of a nurse. And so if you imagine they're contributing £60,000 for every nursing student, and 24% of them never
Nearly
even hit the
a
job
quarter of
market.
them.
Exactly.
Wow.
And obviously they're not spending as much money on those who drop out earlier on, but they're still going to be contributing a lot of money to these people who never actually pay back into the system.
Yeah. Speaking of the 60,000 trained nurse, do you know how much it would be for the other positions?
Yeah, I mean, there's only one other position that I could find the cost for sort of the NHS contributions to training, but it says that by the time someone reaches consultant level as a doctor, they've received £500,000 worth of sort of funding towards their training from the NHS.
Bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on that. £500,000? Nah, man. Just before this episode, I checked my student finance. I owe £112,000. As a doctor, I'm going to be paying back over £250,000. So, trust me, the amount of labour that you're getting out of me, the amount that I'm paying back, you're getting your money's worth.
I agree, but you've got to think about the NHS's contribution if you were then to leave.
Oh,
I think
God,
that's
yeah.
the concern, isn't it? I don't think, well, I hope that no one is doubting the contribution that senior doctors are making to the NHS, and junior ones, but...
I do sometimes, but that's a different story.
Well, but I think no one's doubting that contribution. It's more the fact that if you then get to consultant level and you go to New Zealand or Australia or Canada and go because you can get more money there and better work-life balance, it's...
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I know, but that's the problem, isn't it? I think that's a big worry.
Better weather.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Maybe
so
not
much
New
better.
Zealand.
Oh, it's subtropical, man.
Cold, no?
Oh, no, it depends which way you go.
That's true. Depends
North
how
Island
south
versus
you
South
are.
Island, yeah. But that's one of those things, is like, doctors don't have the training post, so they're like, why would I stay here? We lose all of our home-trained doctors, and then what we're doing, we're just investing loads of money to educate them for them to go off.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's one of the main reasons why doctors are leaving, Don. Are there any other reasons that we've looked into? Why staff in general are leaving?
Yeah, so mental health is definitely an element here. And a 2024 Unison survey found that 31% of NHS employees had to take time off work due to mental health issues in the last year. And nearly 48% of those who went to their employer to ask for help, so their managers, whatever, to ask for help with their mental health, said that they didn't feel supported.
Wow, so it's almost as if like we're not supporting our staff enough.
Not supporting the supporters.
And 42% of medical and dental staff reported work-related stress. So again, alongside those mental health issues, you've got the stress element. And 30% of them reported that they were feeling burnout. Like, at the time of survey, were feeling burnout. So if you imagine a third of the staff that you go and see in an NHS hospital are feeling at the point where they're almost at breaking point, you know.
Burnout is nasty. I remember I definitely went through a period of burnout in my job. And to imagine that feeling for someone in the NHS, a medical professional, that is terrifying. Because I just felt like I was incapable of doing my job, and I was still expected to do it at such a high level. I can't imagine what it would be like for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, COVID really hit the profession really hard. So, like, when I started as an F1 into 2022, like, I was seeing, like, the aftermath of these people that had just, like, sacrificed everything to work in the NHS to look after people, and, like, you could see the burnout in some members of staff.
Yeah.
And I think what's difficult is, after putting in all of that effort for those sort of 2-3 years, the NHS isn't then trying to take the load off. I know that I've worked in a couple of trusts where what health boards will do is they will have a staff member leave, and then they will test to see whether the remaining staff members can still meet the needs.
Oh,
of
that's
the setting.
evil.
And so it's like these people who have, like you say, Josh, given their lives, basically, they've given their heart and soul to keep people alive, and they've given everything to the patients, to then be forced to work even harder as their baseline because they won't hire the staff that have left is...
Yeah, no wonder you get so many strikes.
Yeah. Speaking of strikes...
Payers.
Do you want to give a bit of context, Josh? Because I think... I always joke with Josh because as a physiotherapist, my salary is I'm not going to say pants, but it's pretty pants, and it's got quite a low ceiling. And doctors have a lot higher ceiling of their salary. And this isn't to compare between physios and doctors, but I want you maybe, Josh, to give a bit of an explanation about the financial realities of being a doctor and people to understand why those sort of high salaries on paper are so deserved.
Well, simply put, if we look at the way doctors are paid globally, and for the higher income countries, doctors in the UK are massively underpaid. Our training is longer than the majority of other countries, so the time it takes us to get to become a consultant is considerably longer. So when we're hitting those salaries that are actually not too bad, it takes a long time. If we compare where doctors' salaries were in link to inflation compared to 2008, doctors are paid 26% less.
What generation was that then? Was that the boomers?
Boomers.
Fucking
No.
boomers.
Millennials.
Did millennials fall into that?
No, they
Just
wouldn't have
about. Gen X slash
Yeah.
new millennials.
Yeah.
Old millennials, if you'd like to put it in that term.
been- Yeah.
And we are striking because it's not just the lack of pay, but it's the lack of respect that it shows for the profession as well.
Yeah.
Doctors are being degraded on multiple levels, be it with introductions of different members of staff that are taking on the roles of doctors in an attempt to sort of
Plug the gaps.
plug the gaps. Whereas we in the majority of cases, we need more trained doctors for those roles.
What does that mean though? So you've just said that in the UK it takes longer for you to reach that consultant position.
What the answer is? The answer isn't to work more hours.
No, of course.
What
yeah.
we're saying is, it takes us a lot longer to get to the point where we are earning that higher salary.
So why can they not just make it easier?
They could. We do a lot more training in the NHS, and in fact, when you're a junior doctor, you take on a lot more sort of clerical roles as well, which, as a doctor, we shouldn't be doing.
And as well, I mean, taking on those clerical roles, for example, there was a GMC, so General Medical Council.
Yep.
Yeah, thought so. Good. Could just about remember that. They did a workplace experience survey in 2025, and 63% of doctors in the UK said that they regularly work beyond their scheduled hours. And that at least once a week, a third of them felt they were unable to cope with their workload. Which, thinking of that burnout, I don't know if you guys have, I'm guessing you have, Josh, in your setting, but between me and Don, I don't know if you've felt a point where you physically just couldn't cope with your workload.
I have been to that point, but maybe that's because I've got a lower threshold than you. But yeah,
But regardless, feeling that once a week, imagine how
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is.
Tell
I
you
mean,
what,
I probably complain at least once a week, but I don't,
Definitely.
yeah.
I complain multiple times a week.
we've just mentioned that. What I've done is I've gone to the Doctors UK Reddit subreddit, okay? And this is literally just been posted within the last several hours, okay?
You took about 5 seconds to scroll to this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
5 seconds. So, and it's a post that reads, so this is a junior resident doctor working in the UK. Not enough time in the day to do my job. This is the title of the post. F1 here in a very hectic acute specialty. I'm really struggling. I just don't seem to be physically have enough time in the day to complete the jobs given in my ward round. The turnover of the patients is crazy. Average admissions are approximately 24 hours, often moving into / off the ward in the middle of the ward round, meaning all the clerking, so that's when you examine, take a history from a patient, I did, is now redundant. To me. And it needs to be started again at 2 p.m. They're all acutely unwell, and by the time handover rolls around, I've still got loads of jobs that aren't worth handing over but need to be done. I physically don't have time for lunch, and I know it's not acceptable. What can I do?
Yeah.
That's a doctor working in the NHS saying how horrific their job is and that they don't even have time for lunch. They don't have time to finish the jobs because there's just such a massive workload.
I remember in my job where there was a long period of time where I didn't have any lunch. I just worked throughout my lunch hour not hour, 45 minutes. And that was because there was so much to do. But I had the luxury of realizing that not all of this was urgent. Not people's lives weren't as stake. Well, they were in some scenarios, but not as much. So yeah, this is crazy to me.
You see, this is one of the funny things about it is, like, as a doctor now, I triage things all the time, just in my normal life.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, is somebody going to die? Nope, don't need to be done. Yeah. So it makes it really difficult for me to care about doing stuff at home.
Yeah. And just harking back briefly, Josh, we're clocking back. This all came from me asking you about doctor salaries. Just to give a little bit of a picture of how much you spend out of your own money towards your career annually, can you just give me in the last year a ballpark of how much you've had to spend on your career?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's £45 a month for college fees. Oh, wait, should we have guesses first?
Before we do that, can I just ask, what is it that you need to spend money on?
So,
exams.
well, you're a member of the public that doesn't know healthcare as well as anybody. What do you think a doctor needs to spend out of pocket?
Surely. Well, if you work at a restaurant, you get food for free.
Yeah,
So, do you get medical care for free?
I mean,
We all
I
do.
mean,
it's the NHS.
it's the NHS.
So, I mean, you have to pay for some prescriptions.
I still pay for my
Yeah,
prescriptions.
no, doctors don't get free prescriptions.
Okay.
Or free dental care.
I have heard that you have to pay for exams that are mandatory. Like,
Okay.
yeah.
Registration fees for the GMC.
Okay, yeah.
That's all I can
Fees
think of.
for any professional bodies that you're a part of.
Yeah.
Equipment. So if you had to buy a new stethoscope, I know that's a bit of a
Oh,
slight example, but
yeah, I didn't
they're
even think about that,
You're
yeah.
not going to get given it yourself.
If you have to travel to places to do said exams, or
Yeah.
just traveling, I feel like.
Okay.
If you have to go to conferences, that kind of thing.
Give us the rundown for the ballpark this last year.
Okie dokie. GMC fees, that's roughly £180 for me.
For the year?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I'd pay more for the Healthcare Professionals Council.
Yeah, but it goes up as you get more
Oh, does
senior.
it? Okay.
Indemnity insurance, £60 this year.
Okay.
College fees, so that's the Royal College of Emergency Medicine for me, which I have to have because my portfolio is linked to it. So for me to be able to actually
Do your training.
do my training, I
Yeah.
have to have this, is roughly £45 a month.
What the fuck?
Yeah, how much is that? 45 times by 12? 540.
Yeah.
I've sat 2 exams. That's £415 a pop.
Oof.
Plus 415.
So is that 2 exams within the last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the next one's even more expensive. But
Yeah,
we
the
won't
next
talk
one's
about that.
Yeah, the next one's even more expensive. You have to pay out of pocket for exams as well. Let me
And you have
see.
to do the exams to progress.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
an optional. It's not. This is going to show how great I am. This is either you just do
Yeah,
these exams or
yeah.
you don't carry on with your training.
I had a training course that cost me £800. I did get that refunded, but it took me 3 months. So those 3 months where I had
A long
£800
time out of
less.
pocket.
Exactly.
Remove that from the total number for now, just so people can get a picture of
Yep,
at
sure.
the lowest end how much you have to pay out your own pocket.
Does
every
everyone
year.
get it refunded?
You have to apply for it, but yes, you should get it refunded because it's
Okay.
necessary for the role. I bought a new stethoscope because mine clapped out. That's £200. There's the cost of travelling to different training days and what have you, which I haven't.
Couldn't even begin to guess the cost.
10 training days, trains, that's £20 a day probably. So we just said £200.
Something along those lines.
So that's just in the last year. Out of pocket, so they're not including that £800. That's £2,010, so £2,000 out of pocket.
Yeah, I don't think there are many other jobs that.
To do the job that I have to do.
Yeah, to do the job
Yeah.
that you have to do.
For it to
that
be
requires so
mandatory for
much.
you to pay that money, which it just makes you think is I don't know about you guys, but I hate when I'm advertised one thing and then I have to pay more inherently within it. I'd rather you paid me £2,000 less and paid for me to do the things rather than me getting a certain amount of money and then having to pay the £2,000. I just don't like.
It's like a matter of principle, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather just pay me more and just pay for these as well.
Well, I know.
No, but I feel like if they no,
Don't want to make it too good for these doctors.
The skeptic in me would be like, if they're going to pay you more, that means you're going to have to pay more out of pocket as well.
But why though? Why do we have to pay out pocket?
Because those would go up. I don't know why.
They would just do it. If you were earning more money, they would make things more expensive because they know you can afford it. That's just what they're going to do.
Oh yeah, plus student finance.
Let's not go into that.
Which is thousands of pounds a year.
Yeah, I think I paid like $3,000 last year for that.
Oh, no, I want to check.
Roughly.
So if you say over $5,000 a year out of pocket for your medical career. Also, as well, I think speaking about taking exams, for example, the reason why these exams aren't paid for and why things like this aren't funded is that within NHS long-term planning, over the past kind of 20 years or so, there's consistently been education budgets and training funds. But the problem is that every time there's an acute shortage of staff or like a severe winter pressure, for example, those budgets are the ones that get repeatedly raided. So, which I understand, you have to deal with those hyperacute issues first. But basically saying, well, this training money will be there provided nothing goes wrong, you're not really providing much of a priority to training. You're just saying, well, this money will be there, hopefully.
It's rubbish. I think particularly from 2010s when it accelerated, but I don't know what happened in 2010. Answers on the postcard. But the NHS has just been chronically underfunded.
Yeah.
And in fact, what we're seeing is a lot of services get privately contracted as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of radiology services, a lot of care services are getting privately contracted.
Outsourced.
Yeah, exactly, outsourced, which costs the NHS more.
Yeah. But it feels like a short-term saving because they can plug a gap quickly.
Exactly.
That's the problem. It's the lack of long-term thinking. But thinking about long-term funding, one of the questions that I think we all thought when we were planning this episode is, from not thinking about the logistics of this, but why wouldn't the NHS just fund more staff? Yeah. That's kind of the simplest questions. Because Nye Bevan, who was associated with being kind of the driver of the foundation of the NHS.
Father of the NHS.
Exactly. At the time of the NHS's inception, he estimated that there were 30,000 too few nurses and midwives. So that's only looking at those two professions, not any of the other professions as well. And he wrote, "The situation is already extremely serious, and it's likely to become critical unless thousands of new recruits can be obtained quickly." And so this kind of sets the precedent that since day one, there's been this issue of understaffing. So what are the potential issues that come about with just funding more clinical staff?
There are none. Just do it.
Okay, what are some of the issues that the government might feel there are?
Well, we've already mentioned that for every nurse it costs £60,000 to train them. So if you need to get extra several thousand nurses, that's a big investment.
Yeah.
And we mentioned the dropout rate of 24%. So that's just 1/4 of that is just poof.
Yeah.
So if you needed 40,000 nurses, 10,000 of them are going to drop out. That's 10,000 times by 60,000. That's big numbers.
That's a lot.
That's numbers that I can't work out very quickly.
It's too many zeros.
That's a lot of zeros.
It's a lot of zeros.
It might even be in the billions.
Yeah. And I think with trying to train staff and get the appropriate staffing levels, long-term forecasting has been an issue in the NHS for such a long time. Because if you consider it takes about 15 years to become a consultant from starting training and at its fastest. And even if you take the smaller kind of training periods of 3 years for a nurse, a physio, an OT, planning what you're going to need in somewhere between 3 and 15 years' time is really challenging because things might change with the profession between now and then.
100%.
So technology might mean that you need a reduced number of a certain profession, for example. So I know that within my profession, there's discussions of using apps to take people's symptoms in a musculoskeletal physio department and then using that to give people exercise regimes and only flagging it that they need an in-person review if there's any sort of particular boxes ticked that make it seem like they might need more hands-on intervention.
Do you know what the issue is? The issue is we've got people that don't know anything about healthcare, running healthcare.
Yeah, it's great.
Wes Streeting, if somehow you're listening to this, I'm talking about you. You don't know anything about healthcare before you became the Secretary of Health and Social Care.
I think that every single person who works as a senior member, a senior civil servant in the Department of Health, should either be from a healthcare professional background or should be forced to work 6 weeks as a healthcare assistant. You should be out on the ground on a busy ward. You should do your 3 weeks of training and 3 weeks of work on the wards, and you should be wiping arses. You should be helping people move in and out of bed. You should be serving meals. You should be cleaning. See what you're making the people doing in the nicest possible way, the grunt work, the stuff that actually makes the patients comfortable, the stuff that makes the hospitals run. See what it's like to do that. See what it's like to work night shifts. Before you start to kind of make these big decisions, you need to understand how to empathise with the people whose lives you're basically dictating.
Yeah, indeed.
Speaking of all these higher-ups, for a health minister, making any kind of changes to staffing and the impact this has on budgets is a very risky move. It's more popular to tackle the short-term changes, such as reducing ambulance response times.
That's the thing, though. We don't need popular answers. We need pragmatic approaches which actually fix the fundamental issues within the NHS system. Otherwise, we're not going to have an NHS.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is more of a philosophical question, but do you think that there is less room for long-term solutions and more need for short-term solutions because the public are wanting more answers, wanting quicker responses, wanting to know what is happening because the NHS has been in crisis for such a long time now that they're not giving them the time and space to make those long-term changes?
It needs to be a blended approach. There are things that need to be acted on immediately, but also there are preventative measures that need to be done. Those preventative measures are things like investing in infrastructure, so computer systems, investing in training, new job posts, investing in new technologies which will make our jobs easier, make healthcare more efficient.
Safer.
Yeah. But then again, we've got people in A&E waiting 48 hours for a bed in a corridor. That is just absolutely unacceptable. And prior to COVID, that was just pretty much unheard of.
Yeah.
We keep saying, oh, there's winter pressures. There's winter pressures every winter. It's not an excuse that you can't be surprised. It's going to happen.
Winter does often happen.
It does, in fact.
It's quite regular, really.
But between the middle of December and March, it's somehow there's this season.
I didn't see this coming again.
Oh no, it's happened! Winter!
But that is the thing, though. Every time it snows, we're like, oh my gosh, it's snowing. I swear it happens every year.
Yeah.
Currently
Why
now,
is it such a
everybody's
big
going,
thing?
oh my God, aren't
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
And as well, I think one of the reasons why, as a health minister, it's more popular to focus on the short-term issues is because you can see a change within your government. So say that you've got 5 years in government, right? And you can have a meaningful impact on ambulance response times, right? Even if you do fuck all else, you can point to that and go, look what we did.
Yeah, I did that.
Whereas if you start to make long-term changes, if you start to make changes to try and increase the number of consultants 15 years ahead, if your government gets voted out, one, the next government can reverse your policies, and two, they might be the ones who they reap the benefits of your policy. So actually, from a pragmatic political point of view, you find the issues that are most publicly pressing and easiest to solve, and you solve them, and you don't think about infrastructure, like the fact that basically every NHS hospital has 2 heating settings, which is off and the sun.
And it's usually the sun.
It's usually the sun. Like, you know, there's simple things that we could be changing that would be more meaningful and beneficial long-term to healthcare, but actually we focus on these very short-termist issues, and they are important, and Josh is right, a blended approach is needed. Politically, it makes more sense, but that doesn't actually help the NHS long term. So it's like Josh says, you need someone who's willing to make unpopular decisions that will benefit the NHS long term, rather than just trying to have clickbait headlines of "look what we did."
Yeah.
I mean, and we've seen these effects because what happens is, okay, so somebody comes in, they make all these great changes, and then the next government's like, oh, we need to cut costs. So then they cut stuff that looks like it's not doing anything, but it's these intangible sort of benefits that you can't see straight away. For example, the Conservative government, fuck them, let them burn.
We're
in hell.
apolitical, by the way.
They got rid of Sure Start centres, and now we're...
What are those?
Shoot, they're my Crocs. The definition of a Sure Start Centre is community centres in the UK providing integrated support for children under 5 and their families, focusing on early learning, health, childcare, parenting skills, and employment training, especially in disadvantaged areas to close the achievement gap in services like baby groups, family support, and health advice. So it's basically helping disadvantaged areas of the country where typically you have worse health outcomes.
Yeah.
So you have higher mortality, you have worse literacy, for example, worse education outcomes,
Poorer mental health.
poorer mental health, and it's providing support to young families of how they can help themselves, and it's a great idea. It worked well, and since that's been stopped, we're seeing deprivation prevail in these areas where they previously were improving.
Yeah.
That's really sad, yeah.
It is sad, genuinely is.
Now, as you can see, we were kind of really getting into the meat of that episode and starting to think about what potential solutions they might be. But we just wanted to give you guys a couple of weeks to have time to reflect on this, and we also wanted an episode that wasn't an hour and 40 minutes long. So join us again in 2 weeks' time. And until then, there won't be an episode of The Breakdown because we want to break down both parts of the episode together. But if you would like to see any of our bonus content, you can subscribe to us on Patreon. Each month as well, we take something that was on our Patreon and release it for free on our social media, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And in the meantime, share with a friend, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time.